This is an open letter for Louise Kelly, the NPR reporter who just came back from a visit to Iran. Well, uh, we are glad you had a safe trip. With regards to what's happening over there, first of all, I'm here not in Iran because I myself was not satisfied with the conditions over there. But I don't think it's the right way to go to ask the people in the street, the common folks, what is the cause of that environment that has been created in Iran. Because common folks, let's be frank, are like parrots. They repeat what they have heard in the media, what they have been told. Now, when these totalitarian governments had full control over their people, the common folks would repeat whatever they heard the from the sanctioned news organizations which were connected to the government. But people, the common folks, have become a little confused nowadays because they're getting their news from different sources, and many of them not sanctioned by their own government. So what you get in the streets from the common folks, because as we already said, common folks are parrots and they repeat what they've heard, they believe what they hear or see or read. When you ask common folks about what they think about different matters, what you will get is the real. In reality, what you get is you find out where do they exactly consume their news from. So if they consume the state news or they consume the private news from a private news organization, or do they consume news from other countries? So the asking common folks about different matters is just gets you the answer to a question: where are they consuming their news from? And when you ask them who do you blame for this, that, or the other, the answer they give you is basically determined where they had heard the news from. Where do they listen to news more often? And in Iran, many common folks have access to satellites, and they're consuming the same news that you're consuming. The Fox and CNN and News Nation and this and that. So they're basically, I'm pretty sure many of them start hating themselves for being brown and being born in Iran because they hear it on the news that how bad they are. I'm pretty sure they start hating themselves pretty soon. But the point is this: because the common folks don't have time to think. Common folks are involved with, working, making a living, and raising a family. So they really don't have time to think. And, somebody needs to raise children and have have the society going. Common folks do that. But then they don't have time to think, really analyze, or hear news from multiple sources. They just pick one news source, let's say Fox, because of the short skirts. And then, they're happy with that, and whatever Fox says, they take it as the Bible and they go with it. I'm sure many in Iran do the same. So they're also like short skirts as well. Common folks. So my point is this. Common people, you only get a measure of where they're consuming their news from. Not what is real, what is the reality, what are facts. You don't get that from, communicating with common folks. to get what are the facts and what are the causes and what are the effects of different matters, you have to speak with intellectuals, not common folks. Common folks are, can't tell their ass from a hole in the ground. They're common. They're common. They don't think most of the time. So my point is this: to get what are the real causes and effects, you have to go talk to intellectuals of any society. Period. And this is what I've noticed, that your news organization, NPR, and of course CNN and BBC and ABC and CBS, NBC, none of these guys go to intellectuals. They got a bunch of talking heads on payroll, and they have corporation representative, and they have other corporation representatives which are in the government. Nobody talks to intellectuals anymore. Intellectuals like, the guy in Tucson turning into fossil, all his life turned into fossil, because not many news organizations want to hear what he has to say. Most of the intellectuals are on the sides. Nobody wants to hear what they have to say because they want to go deep. They want to, they think for themselves. They don't let CIA dictate to them what to say, like these talking heads. So nobody really wants anybody who's an independent thinker. So intellectuals are on the side of the road, and nobody, cares. Mr. Chomsky. The point is this: yes, you went to Iran, and common folks told you here and there whatever they heard, and I'm sure they hate themselves very much for being in that situation, for being born brown, and they keep blaming themselves or their own government for a lot of their issues. But here is a mental exercise. Here's a thought exercise for you and the rest of my pink-skinned friends to really find out who's to blame for the crackdown on individual freedoms in Iran for the past 40 years. Let's, intellectually, we want to reach the conclusion who's really responsible for the artist's freedom, intellectual's freedom, for writers' freedom, for women's freedom, for lack of women's freedom, and all these people's freedom in Iran for the past 40 years. Who's the real risk? What is the cause and what is the effect? Let's do this mental exercise. Imagine, salute. Imagine Germany had won World War II. Germany didn't come to North America or South America. Just imagine Germany won World War II through taking over all of Europe. Just imagine that. And not being in good terms with United States or Russia or Soviet Union. So you have Soviet Union, you have Germany, and then you have North America, United States, North America. And imagine Germany, much like Soviet Union became very friendly with Cuba, imagine Germany having the power and the wealth and the military might to become very friendly with Central America and South America, and put some military bases there all over Central America. From Mexico downward, Germany would start creating some kind of alliance similar to NATO, right? Similar to NATO, but between Germany, which controls the whole of Europe, and Central and South America. Just imagine. It's a mental exercise, thought exercise. In such a situation, that is, Germany has full control of Europe and has all these alliances with Central and South American countries, what would be the condition of American people in America? And continue imagining that Germany has put United States under embargo. Financial embargo, economical embargo, commerce embargo, every kind of embargo you can imagine. Germany, the greater Germany, has applied to United States. Even they have gone to Canada and they have some bases. They have found the Canadian through the French side. They have gone to become friends with Canadians as well. So United States is all alone, and Germany has taken over Europe and has many friends in Central and South America and Canada. In such a scenario, what would you think the environment in the United States be? Being under sanctions, under embargoes, how much individual freedom would United States would be allowing its citizens? Let's say they're not in fight, they're not at war with Germany and United States, they're at peace. But Germany has all this power and all these military bases all around the United States, and has embargoes and financial embargoes and economic embargoes and commerce, every kind of embargoes, and keep calling United States a rogue nation because the United States is not going into the fold of the German power, German empire. Because the Americans keep refusing to fall in line with the German imperial ambitions, the United States is called a rogue nation, just like the British. Same thing. Do you remember? You had a fucking war with the British because the United States didn't want to fall in line with the British colonial ideas. Empire, colonial, not ideas, British Empire. United States didn't want to continue falling in line, and for a while United States went rogue. They keep calling North Korea and Iran and Venezuela rogue. United States was rogue with respect to England. For many years they fell out because they didn't want to fall within the, fold, but they didn't want to fold. They wanted to have their independence, the United States. So the same things that happened with respect to the United States and England a century ago, imagine if Germans had won World War II, the same thing would happen with regards to Germany. So the reality is, if that situation was to happen, had happened, forget about Bill of Rights, forget about individual freedom. United States would have much more restricted society with regards to artists' rights and writers' rights and speakers' rights and free speech and freedom of movement and freedom of this and freedom of every freedom would be out the window, because United States would be in a defensive posture, trying to prevent any kind of dissent because they want to keep their independence. So they restrict their own citizens because they're under emergency condition. They're being surrounded by people who want to force them to fold, force them in line, become a part of the empire. In that case would be German Empire. In the case of Iran and Venezuela would be the American Empire. They're not falling in line. So they're restricting their citizens, and they're cutting back on their freedoms. They're cutting back on women's rights, women's freedom, minorities, this, that, and that. It's all because they find themselves in the situation that, for example, that situation was with regards to the United States and Germany. When the state is under pressure from external forces, a lot of internal dissent is quashed. A lot of freedoms, citizens' freedom are taken away just because the system is under pressure, under emergency condition, because the enemy who wants to force them to fall in line is at the gates, surrounding them. They're under embargoes and sanctions. So they have to crack down on their own citizens to keep the order, to keep the unity. They have to crack down. What part of this is hard to understand? And don't tell me, no, United States would never do that, would not do that. No. Under such a circumstance in which Germany had won World War II and had military bases all around the United States, with the exception of taking over the United States, had military bases all around the United States. In such a situation, don't tell me the United States would not, would continue having, all these freedom, individual freedoms, of freedom to speech, freedom of speech, freedom of this. Don't tell me that, because we all know, we all read, heard about the Japanese internment camps in Arizona, in California, in Nevada. How it wasn't, the Japanese weren't even close to, taking over United States or attacking mainland US, or you having military bases in Canada or Mexico. Japanese weren't even close to that, and the Japanese were rounded up, put in camps. On this side, the Nazi party in New York and East Coast, the Nazi party was eliminated, their members were jailed and done away with, cracked down real bad. No dissent, no nothing. If you look the wrong part, the police would come after you, FBI, whatever, just because the country there weren't even military bases surrounding it or under embargoes or sanctions, but the country, United States, was under emergency because the enemy was at the gates. The enemy was at the gates, and they done away with people's property rights and freedoms and this and that and all of that. Forget about it. We are under emergency condition. The enemy is at the gates. Forget about it. So please tell me, how many years has it been that Iran has been under pressure, similar pressure? 40 years, 45 years, 40 something years. Iran has been under the same pressure. Enemy at the gates, enemy that Iranian people don't recognize Americans as enemy. It's just American establishment, the upper echelon of the pink skin society, wants every country to fall within the US empire. Period. If you're not within the realm of the US empire, you're rogue. You have to be done away with. You have to be taken care of. And to that end, you go under sanctions and embargoes and restrictions, right, left, and center. And this causes, when they're under so much pressure, external pressure, this causes the nation to be under emergency condition, which these emergency conditions take away the citizens' rights. What part of this is hard to understand? Yes, I'm sure none of those common folks that you talk to would tell you this, because they don't have a fucking clue. So what you tested was whether satellites in Iran are doing their job. The satellite receivers, those satellite receivers that everybody in Iran, including me, we had on our roofs in Iran and received news from BBC and CNN and this and that and the other. You just tested those receivers. You went and talked to the common folks on the ground, and many of them blamed the Iranian government for all the restrictions on civil liberties of the citizens. Many of them blame them because they are consuming the same news as you're consuming from CNN and Fox News and News Nation and BBC and France 24. They're consuming the same news. So they blame their own government. And I think by next Wednesday they start blaming themselves and their brown skin and the fact that they were born in Iran. Because they're under the news keep telling them that they're bad people, and they keep having to come and suck your dicks and try to explain, no, 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 we are not bad people. We are not bad people. It's our government that's bad. It's our government. No. Brown people are not bad people. Their governments are not bad. Because any government you put under so much sanctions, you force them to be on emergency footing all the time for 40 fucking years. Be under emergency management for 40 fucking years, an emergency setting for every country, including United States, is that individual rights are the first sacrifice of being under emergency condition, being under attack. Fuck! That 9/11, that somehow they said that the fucking Saudi Arabians did it, and for some reason Saudi Arabia was not blamed, although they were all Saudis. Saudi Arabia was not blamed. They attacked two other countries in Southwest Asia, but the freedom of citizens in the United States was taken away. Many of their freedoms, including the right to not to have right to have shoes in the airport. Everywhere you went, you had to take off even your shoes. Why? Because the United States was under emergency condition. For many years, hand over every building you go to, you got to hand over your phone, hand over your shoes, hand over your belt. Basically, they strip searched us. Every building you went to. Yes, under emergency conditions, individual freedom, individual rights are taken away. Iranian government, although I can't stand them myself, but one of the reasons I can't stand them is because they have to apply emergency conditions, because their territory has been under sanctions and embargoes for 40 years now. The operational of the Pink Skin Society actually encouraged their neighbor Saddam to attack them, gave him arms to attack them. And sanctions haven't stopped on Iran. Here is another thought exercise. What would you think would happen if the Iranian government didn't feel threatened by the Pinkskins? Just imagine a thought. If they did not feel threatened by the Pinkskins. Imagine if the Iranian government did not feel threatened territorially, economically, militarily, did not feel threatened by the Pinkskin, or in media-wise. Not covertly by CIA, not overtly by military, not subvertly by the media. If the Iranian system, not the government, system, that was fucking trying to keep order over there. Imagine if they didn't feel threatened by the Pinkskins. Would they have so many restrictions on their own citizens? No, they wouldn't. They wouldn't. It's as simple as that. Because emergency measures, when they're not needed, then more freedom can be given to citizens. Then you're not suspicious of every activity on the ground, because half of them may be Israeli spies, the other half might be Canadian spies, American spies, the British spies, these people trying to do this, that, those people. If they didn't feel this much pressure, citizens would be left alone a little more. Women will be given more freedom. This is very simple, but not to a common man, not to a common folks you spoke to in Iran, on the ground in Tehran. This is clear only to a person who has time to sit down and think. Common folks don't have time to sit and think between raising a family and working. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that if sanctions and embargoes and this this, because for the simple reason that Iranians want to be independent, and unless you're pink skin, apparently from what I see in the world, unless you're a pink skin country, you cannot be independent. I guess for the simple fact that the United States itself, its establishment is pink skin of European origin, so they give a wide margin to Europeans to do what they like and rule themselves the way they like to rule themselves, and do, also have something to eat. But if you're not a pink skin country, you're all under pressure from the pink skin, establishment in NATO. And you're under pressure not to be independent. All the Iranians want is independence. That's all. They want to be respected and they want independence. And unfortunately, Uncle Sam's managers who have put together this empire cannot accept independence. Cannot. And what happens is the countries that want to exercise their independence are considered as rogue nations and bad actors and this, that, and that. They're put under sanctions and embargoes. And in today's world where you buy and sell, you have to buy and sell everything because nobody is really fully self-sufficient. These nations go under a lot of pressure. It's like war, economic war. Embargoes and sanctions are economic warfare. So these countries are being run under emergency measures. And again, if slightest whiff of anarchy or protest or riots in the United States and Canada, emergency measures are put in place right away. I mean, just recently, the Canadian government blocked the bank accounts of many of these protesters of COVID. Whether the protest was right or wrong, I'm not here or there. That's not here or there. The point is, how far will a government give themselves the right to go to bring back order? Now, if the Chinese government had done the same thing the Canadian government did, you would not stop hearing it in the media for 20 years. That they blocked the bank account of their citizens. First of all, they identified the citizens by face scans and this and that, and then they went and blocked their bank account. This is unacceptable. This is not free. This is not this. But the Canadians do it and nobody talks about it in the media. They block their bank account. If the Iranians do it right now, you hear about it for the next 6 years in the news. And this is so different. The British recently passed a group of laws against protests. Many things now you cannot protest regarding many things in UK, and they're not at war. They're not under any embargoes, and they're not under any sanctions, and they're not under attack, and they're not under. It's just there is an unease in the society because of economic conditions, and the UK makes certain protests unlawful. That the police has the right to handcuff you or shoot you or do whatever, because you're doing an illegal act if you're protesting regarding this or that or the other. And they're not under sanctions, economic pressure, embargoes, war, attack, media attack. The British are not under any of these kind of attack to say that they have enacted emergency measures. Iranians have been under 50 years of just nothing but attack. Both physically by their neighbors, who was a CIA agent, Saddam. Both physically they come under attack, and under physical attack when these assassins are sent from abroad to assassinate certain individuals in Iran. to cyber attacks with the cyber virus that they sent to Iran, media attack like you and your pals in BBC and Fox and CNN, all under media attack. They're under all kinds of attack because they haven't accepted to be part of the empire. So of course they're under emergency measure for 50 years. And yes, I know the Iranian people are very tired of the emergency measures. I'm here because I'm tired of living under fucking emergency measures myself. Emergency measures means less civil freedoms, less economic freedom, less personal freedom, less religious freedom, less women's freedom, less everything. Because emergency measures, the system feels it's under attack. And have the pink skins stopped the attack against Iran for the past 50 years? No, you just increased it, hoping that the attacks become so overwhelming, so the system, the government keeps cutting back on citizens' freedom because of emergency measures, because they feel they have to apply those emergency measures because these assassins keep falling out of the sky to assassinate individuals in Iran and bomb and blow up. And the media attack and the CIA attack and the threat of military attack, the whole time Iran is in emergency condition. Iranians are living under emergency. And you're telling us that, oh, you don't want to live under emergency? Here's the thing. We have a governor for you. You can, if you accept, Iranians, if you accept to fall back in to the fold and become our colony, we will send one of your own. We will send a governor for you who's one of your own, that Reza Pahlavi, the son of that Shah. We will send that governor for you as our colony. We will send one of your own as your governor. This is the answer of the West. Reza Pahlavi is nothing but Iranian accepting to fall back into the fold and become part of the empire as a colony, with their governor being chosen by the CIA. Reza Pahlavi, chosen son of Uncle Sam's managers. If they accept that, the sanctions and embargoes are removed, and we are not going to talk shit in the media about you, and we are not going to attack you, and we are not. But if you don't accept being part of the empire, fuck you. Your citizens can go hungry, and you have to cut back on their freedoms because of emergency measures, because you feel you're under attack. What part of this is hard for you guys to understand? Not only you don't understand as journalists, because, I guess, journalists are not intellectuals, or they have an agenda. I mean, you're either not thinking or you have an agenda. Either you yourself is working for the CIA, have an agenda, you're getting paid for having a specific opinion, or you're not thinking. That's it. So if you're not thinking, if you don't have an agenda and you can't think for yourself, you should find an intellectual. Find intellectuals in your universities who are independent thinkers and ask them what's the cause of lack of freedoms in Iran. And they will tell you exactly as I said. When you bring about external pressure in order to unite their territory, they have to cut dissent, crack down on dissent. They have to crack down on individual freedoms. They have to crack down on everything, because they have to be. They feel they have to be vigilant all the time because they're under attack. Again, back to if the situation in World War II was different and United States was under sanction and embargoes from Germany that has taken over Europe. Germany has put military bases in Canada and Mexico and the rest of South America and Central America, and United States has to be, to keep its unity, has to cut down on any dissent. Hey, anybody in the United States, you Mrs. Miss Kelly, whatever, do you recognize McCarthy and McCarthyism? The whole idea that there wasn't even a war, it was a Cold War, it was an unannounced war, it wasn't a war, it wasn't any attacks, and the only small territory that near United States that the Soviet Union was involved with was Cuba. And it was, we almost went to World War III, nuclear war, over one fucking island that one foreign power has put a military base on near United States. Now imagine what kind of emergency condition are the Iranians under when there are 30 different US military bases are around Iran. And they want to keep their independence for some fucking reason, I don't know. I can't argue with them and say why you want to be independent, because then you have to ask United States founding father, why did they want to be independent? Why didn't they just fold into the British Empire? Because there are penalties for not being independent. When you're not independent, you have to pay taxes. Remember, the whole idea was the taxes was being collected from United States, sent to fucking England. That's the down part of being a colony. It's not without its problems. It's just that you don't mention that United Arab Emirates, UAE, as a colony of United States, as a colony of England, has to invest a large sums of money in New York, London, and Paris, or else, New York, London, and Paris stop protecting UAE. Stop, considering UAE as a friend. So UAE has to keep paying off London, Paris, and New York. That's the thing with being a colony. You have to take from your own people's mouth and give it to London, Paris, and New York. Being a colony is not without its downfall. The least you can say for the Iranians is that for the past 50 years they haven't taken out of their people's mouth and invested in London, Paris, and New York. And that is the main reason. That is one of the main reasons that the pink skin upper echelon of the pink skin society is not really happy with the Iranians. They want to be independent and they don't take their money to the West. As a government, yeah, individuals take some money out to, do business in the West, but as a government, they don't, as a Saudi Arabian government moves large sums of money from Saudi Arabia to London, Paris, and New York and invests in real estate, in stock market, in whatever, in factories. So these colonies are actually kicking back a lot of wealth. It's not without its downfalls being a colony. Iranians don't want to be a colony. They have an independent identity. They don't want to be a colony. They don't want to take orders. And they have been under sanctions for 40, 50 years now. And because of that, they had to enact emergency measures for 40, 50 years now. And because the emergency measure means that their citizens get to have less freedoms. So the real answer to the questions that you ask the common folks on the ground in Tehran, the real answer is that the reason behind them not having freedoms in Iran, women not having more freedoms in Iran, is because of the upper echelon of a pink skin society which has enacted embargoes and sanctions and physically attacked and covertly has attacked individuals in Iran. Therefore, the system in Iran has had to enact emergency measures. Therefore, citizens don't have enough civil liberties, civil rights, because no country will give its citizens too much civil rights because if they're under emergency conditions, they're under attack, as you were. No, Miss Kelly. You want to solve the situation? Tell your overlords to forget about Iran. Don't try to colonize them. Remove the embargoes and sanctions, and everything will be fine. Nuclear power. The main reason they're after nuclear power and they're building up their missiles because they got 20 NATO military bases around them. NATO, pink skin, military bases around them. They feel threatened. Let me tell you, if they didn't feel threatened, let's change the scenario. If the Iranian people, Iranian government, whoever the fuck the government might be, I don't care if they're Islamists, they're Cheslamists, they're fuck Islamists, whatever the fuck they are, if you just imagine another thought experiment. If the Iranian people, the Iranian system was not under pressure to be colonized by the pink skin, let's remove all the pressure, economic sanctions, economic embargoes, all of these. And, no attack inside of Iran, covert attack inside of Iran, killing their people, no threat of military attack. Do you think, just imagine you remove all other people, countries from this planet, and the only living people, just imagine, the only living people are there, right there in Iran. Just overnight, all human beings and other human beings on all over the planet have gone away. And it's only Iranians are left. Just imagine. What would happen? What would happen? Would you think they would be still building bombs, building missiles, researching the nuclear power for supposedly nuclear weapons? Would they be cracking down on their citizens hard, trying to keep them in line, taking away their civil liberties, freedoms? Would they be so uptight with regards to their fucking religion even? Do you think they would be so uptight, so fundamentalist, so uptight with regards to people's freedoms and rights and all of that? Do you think they would continue being like that and continue building up their military? Do you think it would be continuing to be like that? No. If you remove all other human beings from the equation and you leave the people of one country, let's say for example in this case Iran, would they continue to be behaving as is right now? No. Why? Because they wouldn't feel threatened. They have access to resources that they want, because you have removed all other human beings on planet, right? They have free access to resources they want. They still have to build and refine and build themselves and refine themselves and do this and do that. They still have to work to feed themselves, but there is no external threat. And because there is no external threat, they don't need to be under emergency measures. So as long as there is order there, they give a free range to their citizens to live as they want, because they're not under emergency condition, because there is no threat of external attack. This is a thought experiment. I can assure you Iran would turn into a normal country if your your overlord Pinkskin, your Pinkskin overlord, stop putting so much pressure on them. Stop trying to bring them into the fold. Extorting from them. It's all about money. Let's face it, it's all about money. It's left, right, and center that even overtly many politicians in the United States are, either through lobbyists, are receiving money, receiving perks, receiving, incentives, promises in order to vote one way or the other. And again, there are many of these lobbyists are actually working for foreign governments. It's illegal and they have to declare it, this and that, but which representative or which senator would say no to becoming a part of a board of such a corporations in Saudi Arabia or UAE after they leave office, if they vote a certain way? Which politician would refuse? So this whole idea that their system is bad just because here's another thought experiment. Any other government, non-Islamists, non-fundamentalists, totally secular government, that if it comes to Iran and it's not approved by Uncle Sam's managers, that means it doesn't, although being secular, it still doesn't accept to fall into the fold of the empire, Pinkskin Empire. They will have the same problems as these guys are having. They will be under sanctions and embargoes, even though they're secular and they're not religious and they're this, and they will still be under sanctions and embargoes. And many of civil liberties, civil human freedoms would be taken away because they're under pressure, because they're under emergency condition, because they're under pressure, because they're under embargo. What part of this is hard to understand?